returned. We're kicking off the Endurance Eat series here in 2024. We took a little break because I had a baby a few months ago, so I had to take a little bit of a leave. But I am back to work full time again, and it has been a journey. If you're new here, I'm Alex of Alex Larson Nutrition, and I have with me some of my team members here, Hannah Cooley and Mary Wirtz. We work one-on-one with endurance athletes from around the world, in addition to being athletes ourselves. So if you are new to this video series, Hannah, Mary, and we discuss various endurance nutrition topics. We go in depth to provide you with some insight and tangible advice that really helps fueling your endurance endeavors. And don't forget to tap that subscribe button below. You can get alerts when future episodes are released. And if you have your own endurance nutrition questions, we'd love to hear from you. We can discuss them here in our videos coming up. So head to the comments and feel free to ask. We'll add it to our queue. But a lot has happened since we last recorded. So Mary, you have moved. You are no longer on Mountain Time in Montana. You are in Oklahoma.
Yes. Yes.
And I know, like, you're sad to have left Montana, but new adventures, right? I think your word for the year is adventure. And yeah, so we're glad to have you back in Central Time.
Yes, I am too. I am too.
And then Hannah, what's new with you?
I am pregnant with our first child. So excited. I'm almost in the third trimester, next week actually, which is just crazy, like how fast it's gone for me. Like I feel like it was this last week that we found out, like it's been like literally a blink of the eye. So going really well. It's been really fun. Yeah, we can't wait.
Yeah. And you're liking pregnancy. You know, it's not my favorite, but you love it, which I'm so happy for you because like I would prefer to have loved it, but I'm super excited for you, and we're excited to see baby Cooley arrive. And you guys don't know what you're having, which is extra fun.
Yeah, and I kind of like copied you a little bit because you had never found out, and that's so against my personality. Like, I think there's been so many people that would say, like, what are you having? And I said, we're waiting. They're like, oh my gosh, I could never do that because it's like, I need to plan. And I'm like, trust me, like, I didn't think I would either, but my husband suggested it one day. He was like, maybe we should just wait. And I was like, maybe we could. And like, now it's been, I'm like almost 27 weeks. So it's like, might as well just wait.
Yeah. It's something to really like work to, like, you like focus on when you're going through labor and delivery. Is like, okay. And honestly, like every time, like, well, except this last time, because we were like, ooh, this is it. This is our final baby. Like, are we going to get a girl? And, but like with my first two, I was like, once the baby was out, I like totally forgot even to ask like what it was. But this time around, we're like, all right, this is it. Like, are we going to get a girl or not? Like, we're fine with either one. But it was really exciting when she arrived, and we were like, so surprised. Like I was in shock, but it was really fun. So yeah, now I'm a mom of 3, and it honestly is going a little better than what I expected. Like I really thought our life was going to be a shit show, and it hasn't been too bad. There's moments where I'm like, oh, this is going great, and then about a few minutes later, I'm like, it's not going great. And so that's kind of how my life is, just a roller coaster.
I feel like that's just mom life in general in so many ways.
But it's like heightened now with 3. Because and like even just the other night, I was like watching the baby, and the middle child was like clinging to me. He was super upset about something. And then the oldest was needing help with homework. And I was like, guys, there's only one mom and there's 3 of you. So let's be a little more patient with mom as she try and like helps each and one of you like in this, like, because they're all asking for things at once. I'm like,
and meanwhile you're like, where's dad? He's probably in the bathroom.
He was working
right now.
He was working, so it was fine. Like if he was at home and he wasn't helping, I would have been really mad, but he was at work, so I couldn't have really been upset. But anyway, so today our episode, we are reviewing some energy gels, and I have been really looking forward to discussing this topic on here because we all are going to have very different opinions on things, but for the most part, because it's such an individualized thing, but I think I want to help just offer some insight to people because it can be really overwhelming in terms of what to look for, which one to select, because there's such a huge option of gels now than there was, 10, 15 years ago. So I think it'll be good for us to go through a list of some of the more popular ones. We're not going to obviously be able to cover all of them because there's so many different options. But first and foremost, I'd love to kind of just ask you guys, like, what are the positives of using gels as a sports fuel for endurance sports? Because I think some people are kind of like put off by the thought of like using a gel, but let's talk about why they're so great. Mary, do you want to start?
I think first and foremost for our athletes, they're extremely quick and convenient. They're compact for a lot of runners. I mean, you only have limited space when you're racing and when you're training. And so it's just easy and portable to be able to carry.
Yeah. Especially for runners, runners, like you only have so much real estate on your body of places to carry. Though I do find like with women, they're making sports bras now with like pouches in there to store stuff. I've seen people store it in their hats. Like getting a little more creative on how you can keep that stuff on you has been, that's definitely the number one highlight of using gels. And then also like they're really quick to get down. Like whereas like a chew or anything, like you have to work to get it down, whereas a gel is so fast, which is really nice. I
also like the fact that it's consistent. So if you're practicing fueling for a race, which you should, it's giving you a consistent measuring stick. Like if I had 2 gels an hour, like, hey, that was 50 grams of carbs. Whereas if it's like random crackers in a Ziploc bag or something, it's hard to be, at least stepping away from that workout and feeling like, okay, I know exactly what I took in, how that workout felt, what I maybe need to do to change for next time. So I like the consistency it can bring. And then also they're really easy to travel with too. So I really like that aspect as well.
Yeah. Does TSA consider it a liquid? You have to put it in your liquids bag?
Well, technically you're supposed to separate it from your other travel items, but yes, they do need to be under 3 ounces. So that's something to consider. Otherwise you need to check them.
Yeah.
I believe that's been my experience when traveling to races.
Yeah. Okay. So what would be the negatives of using a gel? Like what are the negatives? Are there any?
I would say
go ahead, Hannah.
Sorry about that, Mary. I would say the biggest one is just the cost. It's expensive. If we're looking at a Maurten, it's over $3 a packet. And for somebody who does have increased carbohydrate needs, that could be a pretty expensive workout. Especially if you're throwing in any other things that you may be doing, like a coffee beforehand that you get at Starbucks or something to fuel your workout. Or if you are doing and add it all onto the other equipment that you might need. So I would say the biggest drawback, and really for me, the one that I see as the only is the cost. How about you, Mary? What do you think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think, tolerability used to be a big concern when gels first came into the market. Like back when we were in high school, I think they were just sneaking in. And goo was kind of the main one at the time. And I think a lot of people had a hard time being able to tolerate that from a GI perspective. But now there's so many different types of products using different types of sugars and starches and artificial sweeteners and fibers and flavors and all of that I don't think tolerability is so much an issue, just because there are so many different types of products on the market now.
Yeah. I do feel like you still have to train your tolerance level too. Like some people right off the bat, they're like, there's no way I can do gels. I hated it. And I'm like, you really do have to give it a solid college try. Like you have to put in multiple times of you know what I mean? For me, it was that first few times I'm like, oh, I hate this. But then after a while, you just kind of get used to it. And then you do kind of grow to love them. So if you're someone that has just been very against them and just hasn't, there's so many different varieties of textures and flavors that you can likely learn to actually enjoy them. And the other thing with a lot of gels is you typically will have to like take some sort of like water or liquids with them, because to just kind of dilute all of that sugar in your stomach if you haven't been drinking a lot of fluids. So that's something too, is kind of planning out taking them, like especially during a race, like if you know you're coming up to an aid station, like take your gels and then you can wash it down with some water, can be helpful too, just for tolerability and helping it sit better in your stomach. But like with Maurten, a lot of people find they don't have to do that, just because of that hydrogel technology in there too. But we'll get to Maurten here. That's definitely on our list to review. What do you feel like, and I know what my answer here is, but I want to hear what yours is. What's your number one most important factor for someone to consider when choosing a gel?
Ooh, that's a good question. My response is you absolutely need to practice in training with your race day fuel plan, regardless of what gels that you're choosing and opting for. You need to practice, particularly for your harder, longest effort days. You need to practice your race day fueling plan.
Yeah, I would say regardless of whatever product you choose, if it doesn't work for you, then it's a moot point. So I would agree with Mary. It's like, okay, let's practice. Let's try a bunch of different ones, and make a decision at that point.
Yeah. And so that kind of comes down to my number one factor is taste, of like, it has to like taste somewhat good for people, because if it doesn't, they're not going to want to consume it, especially during a race and in the later hours of a race. And then at that point, it's kind of useless if they're not going to be able to get it down and tolerate it. So just from that practicality standpoint of like, it's got to taste somewhat good to you, so that you can get it down. Because as I've said to people, like, food's only nutritious unless you actually eat it. So it's like, it's like, yeah, broccoli is super nutritious, but if you hate broccoli and you're never going to eat it, like, what's the point?
That's how I feel about kale every time.
Oh, it's maybe same with me, kale.
People like this.
Kale's, ugh, no matter how many times I tried it, I don't like kale. So yeah, like taste is always going to be number one. And then like the other factors of like how much carbs are in it, what's the ingredient list, how are you tolerating it, like those things are also up there in importance. But I feel like just from practical standpoints of taste is definitely on my list. Are there anything that you would consider avoiding when shopping for a gel? Last question before we start going through our list here and reviewing stuff.
I would say that I typically tend to tell people to shy away from any product that has artificial sweeteners in it. During exercise is the time when you should not be using anything fake. In the sense of like, have something that has calories, right? Like that is not the time to be doing 0-calorie Gatorade or doing products that have like aspartame or sucralose. And I say that because I haven't had many athletes that haven't experienced digestive issues as a result of using those, especially during exercise. So that's kind of a pillar that I stand on. I don't know if you guys agree with that or disagree. But that's kind of what the one thing that I would say avoid.
I 120% agree, because too, those are just, like you mentioned, Hannah, by and large, lower calories. So it's going to be very difficult to meet your carb goals per hour, calorie goals per hour, your fuel plan. The other one that I typically recommend avoiding is added fibers. Sometimes products you'll see chia seeds sneak in and added fibers, which are very wholesome, righteous ingredients, but similar to your point, Hannah, while you are running is not the time when you want to be shitting your pants.
We don't need, we want people to get fiber in. It's very good for colon health, but not during their run.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get to talking about some gels here. Let's just get the big one out of the way and cover Maurten, right? So I happen to have lots of Maurten on my desk here, because I would think all three of us were obsessed with like buying different fuel. We shop at the feed all the time because you can buy in single servings and in sample stuff. And Mary, I think you are the number one biggest guinea pig out of all of us in trying new stuff. So we've got Maurten gels. I don't have the caffeinated one. That's the white package. But this is the 100 standard one that they've had for a while now. And then we've got the 160, which you can see here is just a little bit bigger. It's not too terrible. So this one's 40 grams and this one's 65 grams. So you can see it's just a little bit bigger and gonna have, what is this? 40 grams of carb in the big one, and this one is going to be 20 grams, so twice as much. So yay or nay to Maurten gels? I know what your answer is, Hannah.
I'm a yay girl. I know some people do not like the texture because it is gelatinous in a way, and so I've had people tell me, they're like, do I chew it? Do I gum it? Do I like gag it down? Because it is strange. Like when I did Grandma's marathon last June, I felt like I was kind of like moving it side to side in my mouth. When it's almost like it is a little bit of a semi-solid, so it makes you feel like you're going to choke on it. But I find the flavor to be very mild. I have no huge like spikes or crashes in energy. And I think that's what makes me keep coming back to it. When I've used other products, those names will go unknown for right now. I felt like I was very up and down, whereas this just feels like it's very even for me.
I find it tastes like marshmallows, and I know other people have reported that as well. Do you feel like it tastes like marshmallows? And if you're listening to this and you agree with me, like let me know in the comments if you think it tastes like marshmallows, because I'm like, oh my god, this does taste like marshmallow.
Now that you say that, yes, but I'm also one of those people, like the power of suggestion is pretty big for me. Like if you would have told me like, oh, it tastes like barbecue sauce, I'd be like, oh, I can kind of get that. Maybe. But like, no, I would say marshmallows. Yeah. Now that you say that, yes.
I love marshmallows, you guys, so much. Like I could just eat marshmallows plain.
Like not even toasted.
Not even toasted. I just could eat them. Like
love that.
I love marshmallows so much. So I really do like the flavor of Maurten. The texture was one that I had to train myself to get used to. Like I was like, whoa, like this is weird. It is a shock to people. I can think of one marathon runner in particular where I had her try it because she was doing Boston, and Maurten is served on the race course there. And so I didn't warn her of the texture, and I should have, because then when we next had our call, she was like, I don't know if I could do it. It was such a shock. And I was like, oh yeah, I probably should have warned you. Like it's fine. It's better if you're like kind of pre-warned of the texture so you're ready to expect it. But if it's unexpected, then it kind of puts you off of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, just to warn people, if you haven't tried Maurten, it's well worth trying, especially if you're doing something like Boston Marathon or the Ironman Brandon events often will have Maurten on the race course. So knowing that, it's nice to have those options. It's one less thing you have to carry because you can grab it there at the aid stations during your race. And which is always a great thing. Any race that you're doing, research in advance what's going to be available to you. So I know that Grandma's Marathon, they offer maple syrup gel packets, and so worth trying that just in case you need to use that out on the race course. But yeah, I'm a fan of Maurten. I think they're a good option. The caffeinated ones do have a whopping 100 milligrams of caffeine, so that one can have a little bit more of a bitter flavor in it just because of that heavy dose of caffeine in there. So be ready for that one to taste a little bit different. But people have said that it really gives them that mental boost when they get that whopping 100 milligrams of caffeine in there too.
I do think that's one of the highest for caffeine content for gels available.
Well, I found one that's higher, and we'll cover that one in here in a little bit.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, but it's definitely one of the higher. I mean, I guess in the 160, Maurten doesn't come in a caffeinated one from what I've seen. It's just the 100.
It should.
I know it should. I'm a big fan of these now that gels are coming out with like 40 grams of carb in them. I think that's a great option. I'm super glad, because otherwise you're just carrying so many gels on you to try and get enough carbs in per hour during your races when they're only 20 per gel. So I do like that. And let's just talk about the ingredients. So with a lot of gels now, they're using a glucose and fructose blend in them because the research shows that um, I think it's 2-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose is shown to produce the best performance results. So you'll see a lot of products will be using some sort of blend of those two sugars in there, just because that's what the research is showing. And then I would say the one big downside of Maurten is the cost, right? Like it's so expensive. So from what I've seen, just based off of like the feed, the 100 Maurten gel anywhere from like $325. I think the caffeinated ones are more like $450, and then the 160 ones are $525 per gel. So if you think of like a really long workout, like that adds up so quickly, and you're like working out on a regular basis, like it's not super cheap. So taking advantage of sales, I know that the feed a while back, hopefully you guys follow me on Instagram, because anytime I see any sales on sports products, I often will share it in my stories, because they had like a sale on Maurten gels, and I even bought some for myself where they were like $1 a piece. I was like, whew, like that's worth it. And it was a max cap, you could only buy 5, but I was like, still, that was well worth like shopping the sales there. I'm a bargain shopper at heart. So okay, let's do the Never Second gels. This is, I feel like, a newer product. They come in 4 different flavors. There's a fruit punch, a berry, a citrus, and then a passion fruit. Which, Mary, you're not a fan of passion fruit, right?
No. Out of all flavors, why?
There is a quote that you had said about passion fruit, and I'm totally blanking on what you said, but I just remember like I was literally dying.
Oh, I think it was Scratch Labs. It was one of their hydration mixes, and it only came in a passion fruit. And you're like, of all of the flavors to try, you're like, why would they just offer passion fruit? Because you were so
like
mad.
Strawberry? Like, how did you overlook strawberry and raspberry, lemon, lime? Like, hello,
the most popular flavors, and then they just chose a passion fruit on that one hydration mix. It was that's what it was.
Exotic.
So funny. Okay, so the Never Second ones, they have a great nutrition profile. They're higher carb and sodium content, and they're priced lower than Maurten gels, which is kind of nice. So they are 30 grams of carbs, so they're C30 energy gels. And then they have an espresso and cola flavored that are 75 milligrams of caffeine in those. And they're a maltodextrin, which is basically a glucose and then a fructose. So they average about 350 per gel. So Hannah, I think your husband uses those, right?
Yeah, he actually started on this product because a lot of European riders started using these, and a lot of the tour riders did. And then Keegan Swenson, who won Leadville last year in a record-setting time, also uses the Never Second products. I've tried it as well, and it's much more thin in texture than the Maurten. The packets are a little bit bigger. And then I've also heard from people too that, like, I personally have not had a lot of issue, but I could see where it happens, is they are a little bit more difficult to open. So like, obviously when you're in a race kind of situation and maybe anxiety is a little bit higher, you kind of feel like thrown off by things. If you were unable to get open the packet, I feel like that could throw you off a bit. But I really do like this product. Alex said, sodium is a lot higher. It's almost 170 milligrams higher than what you're going to get in Maurten. It is just a touch cheaper in cost. And then I find that most people do like the consistency of these a little bit better because it's not gelatinous like you will with a Maurten. It's a lot more like slippery in texture. Yeah. So it works well in like a warm or cold climate.
Yeah. So if that sounds something that appealing to you, definitely worth giving those a try.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to the spring energy gels, which they have such a huge variety, which sometimes kind of bugs me when like you like a certain flavor, but it doesn't have the right nutrition profile that you're looking for. But I will say, and Mary will agree with me here, that the best spring energy gel is their awesome sauce. It tastes like apple pie. It's 45 grams of carb per gel. I have one here. You can see it's pretty similar in size, like to the Maurten 100. And it's got a strong cinnamon flavor in there, so something a little different. And I tolerated it really well.
I also go ahead, sorry.
No, this is like really unimportant, but I was going to say, I swear all of my mom runners love the spring awesome sauce. And I think it's because we're so used to eating our kids' applesauce pouches. And it tastes so similar to just an everyday applesauce. It is typically lower carbish, 15 grams per pouch. And how they get 45 grams in this product, I have no idea. It baffles me because it's very small volume too, in my opinion. Very easy for storing in a sports bar when you're training. And I just love that they use the whole food ingredients in this one too. I have not had any athletes have any digestive issues with the awesome sauce.
Yeah, because it's basmati rice, applesauce, apple juice, yams, and maple syrup, which is super interesting to me. That it does have a small amount of fiber. It's like 2 grams of fiber, just because it does use that real food. And it does have 2 grams of protein, so that's something to consider. Not super high in sodium, like 85 milligrams, but as far as like sodium or as carbs go, it's a nice 45 grams is a nice dose for just one gel. And average cost of spring energy gels is around $4.20, so it is a little more, again, on the more expensive side, which is the downside of gels, especially the good ones. But yeah, I think they're great. There's other ones that I've seen people use for they really like the Hill Aid one. That one's got a little bit of caffeine in it, just like 30 milligrams. And that one's mango, basmati rice, banana, honey, and coconut oil. So there's a little bit of fat in that one. But I've had a lot of people that like that. The Canterbury is more of like a banana strawberry. Their Power Rush one is banana, honey, molasses, orange juice, plums. So they've got some really different products. If you're looking for more of a whole food based gel, the Spring Energy would definitely fit into that category for you. But if you have a more sensitive stomach, you might just want to be a little careful with some of them, just because it'll have a little bit added fat and a little bit added fiber in there.
And I would also be careful of like some of those like stronger ingredients too. I tried a spring. This was a while ago. It was one of their ones that had peanut butter in it. And it was really bad. Like bad. So that was like I like was a little scarred. So I would say, if anything, just kind of like what we went back to our first, our very first point, like make sure you like it. Like even if the ingredients look good, because like whole food ingredients is really important to you, but it tastes awful going down, it is not worth it. Right. So just being mindful of like all the, at the end of the day, it comes down to what works well for you and what does sit well. Because I wanted to love the peanut butter one, but it didn't love me.
Yeah. And I think Spring Energy does have some ones that are more of like almost better for like ultra runners that are out there for like multi-day events that might need some like protein and some fat in there. They do make some products that are really nice for those settings. We won't go into reviewing them. But those are really nice options for some of those easy to carry products that will have some additional calories and nutrition for those really long multi-day events. All right, so I want to move on to the SIS Beta fuel, because there's the regular SIS isotonic energy Go ones, but let's talk about Beta fuel because I find this product really interesting. And they actually have 2 varieties of this Beta fuel. I think just 2. There might be is 40 grams of carb. It's a 1 to 0.8 maltodextrin to fructose ratio. So this one will have 40 grams of carb in there. See, sizing wise, like pretty similar to the 40 grams in the Maurten. Sodium's really low. It's only like 30 milligrams. So basically, and this is like a $2.50 cost. So it is quite a bit cheaper than like the Maurten 150 or 160 gel. That's, over $5. So, and from what I've heard from people, and I haven't tried this one yet, but it's on my list to try with, my newfound running adventures postpartum here, is it's a little bit thinner texture as well. Have you guys tried this one?
It is.
Yeah.
It is. And I would say it's pretty similar to the Never Second ones.
Yeah.
The only thing I don't love about this product is the fact that there is artificial sweeteners in it. It's ACE K. So that's just like a really potent, like very high sweetening agent. And then they do have gums in there as well. They're gelling agents. It's a xanthan gum and a gellan gum. And I find that long-term use of that for some people does cause GI upset over the long term. So I personally don't vet for this product with a lot of my clients, but I have had some that just love it. They tolerate it well, and we just roll with it.
I don't know. Does the Beta Fuel have an artificial sweetener?
They have
artificial flavor.
The Beta Fuel does not, to my knowledge, does not have an artificial sweetener, but the SIS Go do.
Yeah.
You're right. I was just looking it up.
Also does have the neutral flavor, which I really like that they have that, because even for some of my athletes that have been sensitive to Maurten, I'm like, let's just try them very, very well.
You're right. So the Beta Fuel does say it has flavorings in it, which is, whatever that could be. But it doesn't have the artificial.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's
Except
not
for the neutral flavor doesn't. Yeah.
Yep. I've heard people like this. I've heard good things. So they do also have the nootropics Beta Fuel, and so nootropics refers to like enhancing memory and cognitive function. So this one has 200 milligrams of caffeine in it. That's a lot. It also will have some, is it citicoline, which claims to help you stay alert and focus. It also will have some L-taurine in there, which has really mixed, varied findings in whether that improves athletic performance. And then the L-theanine, which combined with caffeine has been shown to improve cognitive function and focus. So that this nootropics one is also available, but 200 milligrams of caffeine is a lot for a gel. I would
look out, world.
Yeah, like that is a.
I will say,
that's a lot.
Truthfully, that worries me a little bit, particularly with my ultra distance runners that are out there for 12, 15, 18, 24 plus hours. I think that would lend itself to some issues.
Yeah, because that's such a high dose all at once, where it's like you might want to spread it out with your longer distance stuff, so that you're not just having that big jolt and then like the kind of crash afterwards when the caffeine wears off. So, but that is an option out there for people if they want to try that one. All right, so let's go to the SIS Go, like the isogenic energy, the Go ones. That is the one that does use an artificial sweetener in there. And I mean, we all can agree, like if you're a sensitive stomach, that wouldn't be my go-to recommendation. But I do know that tons of athletes use this and they love it, which is great for them, but it just wouldn't be like top of my list to recommend.
Yeah. It's a like more on the inexpensive side too, $1.89 per serving. So obviously that's a factor, right? So, I would say if I had to choose, I would have this probably over a Go, just in the way that like the texture, the mouthfeel, the flavor, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's something I really hesitate to recommend too much just because of the artificial sweetener.
Yes, I do like how it's very viscous. It's more watery. It's easy to get down, easy to open the packets. And for this one, compared to many other gels, I feel like you can just even get it down without having to chew or do anything else other than simply just swallow it. So I feel like a positive is being able to get it down so easily.
Yeah.
For sure.
It is a really large gel though. Like when people try and, because it's only like 22 grams per gel
Yeah.
of carbs. And so when they're having to carry so many on them, especially for like a marathon, it's bulky. Like
It
it's
is
really
bulky.
bulky.
It does fit inside sports bras though, and back and front. Just an FYI for those that care and want to experiment, go for it.
Men, strap on that sports bra. You can carry your SIS gels with you.
Yes.
I'll carry them.
Okay, let's go to the Huma Chia energy gels, because I know Mary's kind of thoughts on this.
You know, and honestly, I don't have a ton of strong thoughts. I've tried it a couple times. I have not been brave beyond that because the idea of fiber in gels typically lends itself to pooping your pants mid-run and mid-race. But there are some redeeming qualities of the Huma gels, so carry on.
Well, I was just gonna say I've had these in my desk drawer for a while because I just like to have gels on me when I'm talking to athletes. So like there's lots of variety, right? So there's
that lemon one looks fab.
That one is good. It tastes like lemonade.
Yeah, it has a little caffeine in it. It has where is the caffeine here? No, I can't even find it. But they have a chocolate flavor. They have a cafe mocha, which also has it's a 2x caffeine. So yeah, I mean they're nice options because they come in a variety of flavors. I don't mind the texture with the chia in it personally, which is kind of surprising for me because usually I'm a little. Oh yeah, the lemon one has like 25 milligrams of caffeine. The cafe mocha one has 50. It's not a huge amount of caffeine, but you know when you're taking just small doses throughout your training or your event, that would be kind of nice to have that little small consistent dose of caffeine. But other than that, I mean, if you're looking for, this is another really good like whole food ingredient option. If that's something that's important to you, it's got that 2-to-1 ratio of glucose to fructose. Usually averages around 250 per gel. So yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people really love them. The strawberry one is really good. I've had that in the blueberry. So yeah, I think they're a good option, but not like 22 grams of carb per packet, so you'd have to carry quite a few on you. And then they do make a plus energy gel, which has some added electrolytes in there, so that will be more like 245 milligrams of sodium. So for more salty sweaters, that might be an option as well.
I do like that they have that for sure, because with many of the gels that we've talked about, they are on the very low end for sodium. And so I think it comes down to, we still have to figure out a plan for boosting salt for many of our athletes, particularly the heavier salty sweaters.
Yeah. Let's talk about maple syrup. So Untapped is probably the most common brand of like maple syrup options, but there's one here in Wisconsin. I think it's Anderson's. That's the one that they offer as at Grandma's Marathon. But I'm kind of a fan of the maple syrup options. A lot of people really love them. I've had some of our Canadian athletes who are like, "Can I use maple syrup? I love maple syrup and I'm Canadian." I'm like, "Yeah, absolutely." And they're like, they're so pumped. They're so excited when I tell them that they can use maple syrup. So yeah, it's very water soluble. It's very like smooth to consume. It doesn't like stick to the inside of your mouth. Like, yeah, I'm kind of a fan of the maple syrup. How about you guys?
Yeah, it's funny you say that with Canadians. I had a Canadian athlete last summer. And we were talking about different like fuel, and he was like, "This is just getting so expensive. Do you have anything that I could use as just like anything else?" And I'm like, "Okay, don't take this the wrong way. I know you're from Canada, but I'm like, you can use maple syrup." And he's like, "What?" He like literally went to the top of his fridge and he had like, it's like a 4-gallon jug. He's like, "I'm set for the year." I was hoping that you wouldn't take offense because I'm just suggested, maple syrup because he's from Canada. But yeah, it works.
So funny.
Thing I've noticed with some of my skiers or even ultra runners in the winter is that if they're using maple syrup at all in their bottles, it doesn't freeze like a big glob of honey does. And so that can be advantageous too if you're at all using it in your bottles versus like in the actual gel packet form. Love it though. Love it, love it, love it, because it's so concentrated and just so easy to get down.
Yeah, for cross-country skiers, it does have a much lower freezing point. So if you're worried about your stuff freezing on you, if it's really cold out, maple syrup would be a really good option. But typically low in sodium, so you'll have to also consider electrolytes. But and like $2.29 per gel if you're looking at like the Untapped brand specifically. But with like the maple syrup, like if you have it in the gallon jug, like above your fridge, you can buy like the what are those called, like gel pouches, like it's like a little pouch that you can just put your product in there and you can carry that with you, which would be a really great option as well.
I also did for my Ironman in Madison, I did like it was almost like a little squeeze bottle that I just put like a bunch of gels in. So you could also do something like that. So I found that it was like a water bottle top almost. And then I just took a sip, like a little drink every mile. So that might be another option for the maple syrup too.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do two more here. Let's do goo. Let's just talk about goo real quick. So it's like the OG, right? Like that's like one of the original energy gels that came out years ago. Pros, I think we all can agree it's cheap. Yeah. And they come in a variety of flavors. Cons is, not like the greatest texture and like super overly sweet in my opinion.
Yeah. I think if I had to use this as like, you're using one gel in a workout, like fine, right? Like I'm a sweet fiend. But if I had to use these over a 3-hour workout, it wouldn't go well. I just found that my energy is just inconsistent with these. Like I get a big high and then a big crash.
Yeah. But if you love them, go for it, right?
Go for it.
And then the last one is UCAN gels. I haven't tried these personally.
I haven't either.
But from what I've heard is that it's got a really messy texture. And the taste is not like super great. But it's about 19 grams of carb. They talk about this Live Steady cornstarch as the fuel. They call it low glycemic. It's a starch. It's not a sugar. We kind of, when we talked about this because we have this all in a blog post, a lot of our reviews. So I'll include the link to our blog in the show notes here. But the scientific merit behind their claims with their starch ingredient, it's like a little uncertain. Would you agree?
Yeah, this one I did try. I've tried it several times actually because I really wanted to like it. And ultimately, I don't love that it has the allulose in that. I think that's going to lend itself to some potential of GI issues for some athletes. I don't love that it's lower carbohydrate. And I did notice with the cornstarch compared to other starch mixes or gels that are maltodextrin based, I feel like the cornstarch did not dissolve well and it's gritty. Like it felt like after you go to the dentist and there's like this residue on your teeth. I felt like that's how it was. And so I think this one would be a challenge for some athletes being able to hit their nutrition goals and also just with the off-putting texture. With that said, though, I do have several athletes right now that use it, and we work around it, and we try ways to add more carbs into their fueling schedule and fueling plan for race day, and also find other strategies for boosting their salt.
And I would say that it's a little tricky, too, because it's like there's a lot of high-profile athletes that say that they use this product, like Carrie Tollefson uses it or bets it on her podcast. Emma Bates uses it. Emily Sisson uses it supposedly. And so it's one of those things that like, I want to believe that they love and use the product, but and it's hard not to be influenced in that way, right? When some of your favorite fastest athletes are using a product. So taking that with a grain of salt, if it doesn't work for you, but it might work for a professional, well, we're all different.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would agree. Like I mean, the pros are the pros, and they're going to use what they use and promote what they promote. But I think ultimately you have to just choose what's best for you, like in taste, in nutritional profile, in tolerability in your gut, and then like financially as well. Like there's lots of different factors. And so I feel like one of our jobs as like, dietitians working with our athletes is just helping them find the best option for them that they can feel good about and go into their race feeling really confident that they're ready to go. They just have to execute their nutrition plan. It's not going to blow up in their face and they're going to feel really great to start to finish. Like that's our goal for them, and helping them navigate picking the right product and training with it and tolerability and making sure that we've checked all the boxes with carbs, with hydration, with electrolytes and carb, like all of those things, so that they can go in and have that be one less thing that they have to worry about. Love it. All right, ladies, thank you so much for your insight on this. This was so fun. And I just want to invite you as a listener to ask questions in the comment section. Let us know what your favorite gel is. We will be adding more future videos coming forth. Hopefully we'll get to review even other products like energy chews, hydration mixes, electrolyte stuff. And there's so many products, and I have so many of them sitting in my office here. I'd love to pull them out and do more reviews. So thanks, ladies, for your time today.